So you talk a lot there about like game preservation. Are you the sort of person who cares about like physical hardware preservation, or do you want it just preserved in some form?
Um, so I value like the hardware preservation. I think that's people who do like collect old games, maintain old game collections, and maintain like the old hardware working is really like an honorable goal.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's needed, but also I think that is really not the goal of Lutris. So the goal of
Sure.
Lutris is
Yeah.
keeping games playable like in the simplest way possible on your current hardware without needing ordering systems on eBay, without needing like original medium. Because at some point, whether we talk about game consoles or old computers or like cartridges, like floppy disks, all that stuff, it will break at some point. I mean, at some point it will deteriorate.
Mhm.
So whether it's like in 20 years, in like 50 years, in 100 years,
Mhm.
those things are not eternal.
Mhm.
So we need to have something to keep them alive, like without depending on the hardware,
Mhm.
without
Mhm.
depending on the original media. So yes, it's nice to have like that's kept alive,
Mhm.
but as long as it works. I mean, um, Rust will do its job eventually, and at some point you'll no longer have like a single Super Nintendo working in the world. At some point there will be like no longer no Super Nintendo ever working again. Okay, unless there's like some other models, but then the cartridges will disappear. Yeah, nothing like material is eternal. Where
Mhm.
while like digital data can be replicated and can be and also improved upon. So you can improve the games. So you can play your PlayStation games upscaled. You can upscale them like 4 times or 6 times the original size, so they look a lot better on like on your high-res monitor. You can apply like shaders. You can use save states to beat those old school games that were like way too hard to beat back then, and then you can use like just save states to finally beat them
Mhm.
and appreciate like the whole thing. Um, so yeah, in that regard, Lutris is really more focused to just being able to play the game, not having to deal with like a physical collection.
Mhm. And then someone's gonna say, "Oh, but you know that there are FPGAs that are designed to recreate the hardware." You're specifically talking about like the original hardware. Obviously, there are people doing like recreations, especially for that. Like, I know there's definitely NES stuff out there. I don't know if there's SNES stuff. But there are people that have like actually gone like literally just remade the entire system, and you can have like a modern version that has HDMI output, all of this stuff.
Oh
But
yeah, I mean a lot of those like mini consoles like SNES
a
Classic
lot of those are
or
just emulators.
yeah, those are like just mostly emulators. But you have um, what is it? The Mister, I think. The Mister is like a FPGA platform that's capable of running a lot
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
things, um, and that's good. That's good as well, especially if it gives you a way to play the original cartridges
Mhm.
um, that you couldn't play without like an original console. Uh, but then, I mean, some people say that they will be like way better than emulators. I mean, I haven't experienced really like those FPGA systems, but as far as I can tell, like emulators are really pretty good already. So I don't see like what could be improved from those emulators. If there are some things that make it better, I mean, sure. I mean, I'm all for it, but I'm more in the position where emulators are really good enough for like most things, and like 99.9% of people can't make the difference between an emulator and a FPGA.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
like
it's
taking some
pretty
of
much good
those.
enough.
I like taking some of those like early 3D games and then just upscaling it to 4K. They look really nice. Like
Yeah.
the models are obviously it's like low poly models, but everything like it looks way better than it would ever have looked on like a original console. And I know some people like that original I appreciate the people who like that original experience, right?
Hmm.
But I like save states. Save states for me are like one of the biggest things. Like there are so many old games, especially that are really bad with how they offer you saves, or they have
Hmm.
continue systems where if you die 5 times, you restart the entire game, things like that. I'm just like, I get wanting to have like the classic experience with it, but for me, it's not my thing. I appreciate it, but it's just not my thing.
It's not my thing either. And back then you had to enter cheat codes that you had into like magazines or like yeah, or have something like a game genie if you wanted
Mhm.
to like circumvent some stuff. But yeah, that makes the games like a lot more accessible. Or if you had games that are like poor controls, like the control scheme was like kind of messed up, you can make the game like playable just by remapping everything
Mhm.
and giving like better controls. Or games that were only playable like on keyboard and mouse, now you can make them playable on a joypad, or the other way around if you want. I mean, yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, everything is possible. So you can really improve. What I like is when I see like games that are like totally like reverse engineered, like Diablo, for example. Diablo has like so many source ports, so you have like so many ways to run Diablo now that are sure you could run like the original Diablo, but then you can also run like one of the many like Devolution X or any other of the like source ports
Mhm.
that improve on the game. And it's like what you said earlier is that games, they need to be like maintained over time. And if it's not like the original publisher that does it, then the community eventually will take care
Yeah.
of it.
Well, in
For some
cases where a game
games,
is popular, like that's the
yeah,
big
for popular
problem.
games.
And this is what you were saying before about like these live service games that have these reverse engineered servers. So there are games like MiHoYo does not like that it exists, but there is a reverse engineered server for Genshin Impact that exists. There is a reverse engineered server for Final Fantasy 14, but like these are giant games. If you're a live
Hmm.
service game that has 10,000 players, 5,000 players, the chances that someone is actually going to go through that process and actually reverse engineer a server is so much less likely that
Hmm.
when these games are gone, they are just gone. And I I get people not caring about it because right now, they care about what's happening. They care about the current content, and most people aren't programmers and can't sit down and actually go and do something like this, especially a reverse engineered server. Like that's a massive project. But I don't know. It would like I can go back and play. I can go back and play like the first Pokemon game, for example, and it's in the exact same state it was always in. Like there's it's not attached to some server somewhere. It's not. It hasn't got like a bunch of patches that has like changed the experience. It just is the game that it always was, and that is nice. But I understand like from a business perspective why these live service games exist. Like they are a great way to make money. That's why they're
Sure.
done. But I don't know.
But making that the only thing that makes keeps the game alive and say, okay, well, we're going to keep this live service running,
mm,
and the day we're stopping this live service, the game is gone.
yeah.
So some publishers are nicer about this than others.
I know the
I
Dragon
had
Quest MMO is getting a single player version soon, which is really cool.
I've noticed like I had a game like on EA app
Mm,
that I wanted to try and that had a anti-cheat, and I noticed that it was taken down.
mm.
It's called like Knockout City,
I think I know that one.
and that one they made the game free and they made the server free. So
Wow.
I thought that was like a pretty nice move.
Mm,
That's okay. You're shutting down the servers, but you're giving away the server the server so you can host your. So I didn't get the server to run in Wine because
Mhm.
it involved like installing Postgres
Oh, oh,
database and
okay, yeah.
Redis, and I was like, maybe I don't want to install like Postgres in Wine. Maybe I can just use like a native one. And I was at some point I didn't care enough to keep going at it,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, I was like, oh, this is pretty cool that they are giving this stuff away, and yeah, being nice about it. In some other cases, like you have games that were using uh, GameSpy,
Mm.
which is no longer a thing, but
Yeah.
now you can use OpenSpy, which
Mm.
will let you play Unreal Tournament 2004 or all those games, like older games that's used GameSpy in the day
Mhm.
and now can't run online. Um, you have also like efforts like Pretendo that will
Tendo.
re-implement services for the Wii U and the 3DS.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that
So
one.
yeah, I mean, I kind of want to try it and see if I can get like Splatoon multiplayer working with Pretendo.
Mhm.
But yeah, I was already like pretty excited that I had like Splatoon on the Steam Deck working with the gyro. So that means I could control like the camera
Mhm.
like by tilting the Steam Deck, and that was working like perfectly. I was like, that's really cool.
According to their numbers, it is 62% working on Splatoon. So maybe it's a little bit too soon to do that one, but it's coming along. So at some point you'll be able to do it.